You guys, nobody was going to tell me that I was muted and trying to talk. Nobody. Thanks, Clint.
I was trying to find my comment button, but I couldn't find the comment button.
It's okay. I'm just giving you a hard time. Y'all, it has been a morning. I'm working from home today because we're supposed to have painters come to paint over the drywall spots that our builder finally fixed because our warranty went up during COVID quarantine. And during my 9 o'clock session, the lady said the painters would come in the afternoon. Guess who rang the doorbell twice during the 9 a.m. session? Oh, the painters, So then they left. So like in the 10 minutes that I had to call the lady and be like, can you send them back at 11, please? Oh, it has just already been a day. And I've been in meetings since 7 a.m., which I know is your life too, but it's like, oh, can we win? No, we can't win. We can't win. Okay. So I put the bit.ly in the chat bar there so that you guys can look at the slides. I'm more going to go, I call it live to site because that's what we used to call it when I worked with Discovery Education. So I'm actually going to go live to site while we go through everything. Some of it might be things that y'all already know. Hopefully you'll learn something new. We will see. I'm going to kind of give you a rundown of what's in the math TechBook. I did invite a couple of y'all to join me that were already using it. So thanks, Ms. Gardner and Mr. Is it Gillard? Am I saying it right? Gillard?
Gillard.
Okay, thanks.
Gillard.
So, and then if you guys are using it anyway in your classroom and you want to share with us how you're using it, then I would appreciate that. Okay. All right. And I am recording. I did remember to click record, which I normally forget. So pretty proud of myself for that. And let me present. Oh, let me figure out. Hold on. Let me save my last recording real quick. Okay. Share. Okay. All right. And hopefully Mr. Herring or Mr. Rogers, and Carrie, I think I saw Carrie pop in, Mr. Blado. If you guys will let me know if there's anything in the chat bar that I missed as we're going through. There's not a lot of us, so you're welcome to unmute yourselves and ask questions too, or provide feedback or how you're using it in your classroom, then we would appreciate it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you some of our basics of using the math TechBook. So my name is Sarah Eiler. I'm the diff at the 2 Southern Pine schools, which are going to become 1 this Friday, yay, and West Pine Middle. My email address is there. Obviously, it won't be hard for you to find me through the Moore County system. Please send me an email if you have any other questions. I did put on the form, if you'll fill that out, the form that's at the end of the presentation here, and I'll put the link in the chat bar at the end of the session. If you'll fill that out by Friday, I will submit the CEUs on Monday because I know we are starting to get our emails about our license renewals. So I'm going to go live to site for the most part, but I did throw some screenshots in this PowerPoint so that you can refer to it later. So we're going to talk about navigating the math TechBook. I'm also going to talk about assigning from the math TechBook, ways to assign through Google Classroom and Canvas. How to change your grade level, kind of overviewing, tips and tricks for navigating that I use. And here we go. I got these kind of more as my checklist so I can make sure that I go over everything that I wanted to go over. All right, so first thing, when you log in, you're gonna log in with Google. I always tell people the globe in the top left corner will always take you home. It is like being Dorothy and clicking your sparkly red heels. You click on the globe in the corner and it's going to take you back to this home page. So I'm going to go into my math TechBook. Once I'm in, if it's not on the correct grade level for you, you can click on course and change your grade level. So you can see we have the math TechBook for 6, 7, 8, math 1, 2, and 3 in Moore County. So this is not available for K-5, it's just available for middle school. Once I'm in, you'll see 3 different views. You've got your overview, which is your pictorial overview. I've got my table of contents, which is the replication of a traditional table of contents in a textbook. So if I were to open a textbook and find a page number in the table of contents, this is more this view. So if you miss the smell of your textbooks, then you can click on table of contents. And then you've also got your standards. So you can search by the standard course of study in here as well. So I just expand each of these until I see blue, and then I click on the blue and it's going to bring up activities related to that standard. I'm going to go back to my overview page for now. Any preference as to what unit will you go into? I knew for science because I helped the science PLCs, but I don't know what y'all are on for math. Or should I change grade levels? Nothing. You're just going to make me struggle with the wait time? Is that what's happening?
I teach 7th, so if no one's going to volunteer, you can do 7th.
We'll do 7th. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, so now I'm going to pick one of my little sections here. I'm just going to pick this one. Not going to make you struggle and me struggle again. Okay, so you'll notice that this, my diffs that were in my science session, it's quite a bit different in the math textbook. So this is laid out by discover, practice, and apply. So on our discover page, we've got engage, which replicates our prior knowledge. So it's either going to activate something that they already know, or it's going to be an easy way to introduce the new things that they are learning. And then we've got our investigate, which I always think of kind of as like your exploration. So you're exploring how to do it. You've got your checks for understanding. So this is kind of like maybe the worksheet that you would do after you gave notes on how to do something. And then you've got your summarize. So on the summarize page, you've got this, I think of as my review sheet, right? So everything that I learned in my engage and investigate pages, I can use the summarize page for. So this is summarizing everything that we talked about on those first 2 pages. So all of that is in your discover. So if you are truly just looking for things to implement during instruction, then you're going to want to stick to that discover tab. The practice tab is going to have our coaching. So these are practice exercises that actually provide feedback. So when they answer these questions, it's going to show them where to find the correct answer in the resources or the textbook. And then it's got this play. So this is like our practice problems that are also gamified for students. And then any other additional resources that have to do with multiplying and dividing signed numbers are going to be under our additional resources. So this is going to be a math explanation, dividing integers, math overview, multiplying integers, and then how to solve a math explanation. So these are all, from what I can tell, videos of a teacher explaining these concepts on a whiteboard. So this is the additional resources that will help with this discover section. And then you've got your apply section, which I call, it's like your project tab, right? So project ideas for how you can apply what you learned. So you've got your view all page, and then it explains those 2 applications. So how does a business make money? You've got a video, and then a little place for students to submit an answer. So they would watch that video, consider the writing here, and then they have to write a plan for their business that includes these things. So they are using what they learned about multiplying and dividing and making a business that would make money. And then their second application, how many yards does a team lose to penalties in a football game? So they once again have this input that they need to consider. You're going to be a statistician, choose a football team, and collect information on these questions. Maybe not the best year to do football because a lot of it's been postponed or canceled, but still. They can look at past football data. So it's kind of pulling that real world into what they're learning. I always like this apply tab because, I mean, at West Pine Middle, at least we have a flex period. And I think these would be fun activities to kind of have them do during that flex period time. So I always like to mention that if you have a flex period at your school, that might be a good thing for them to do as an extension or an enrichment. And then the model lesson over here is going to show us everything that we could do. Now, one thing that I like that's in math that's not in the science textbook is this progressions and standards. So it'll actually show you the reach back standards that you are expanding on from 6th grade, as well as the current 7th grade standard and the reach ahead standards. So what knowledge this will be used to build upon as you further the course of study through the year. So it includes that, it includes the standards for mathematical practice, and then also your conceptual understanding, your fluency, and your application. So that's all under your progressions and standards. The other thing is your teacher prep section. So I always joked with teachers that this was like, instead of me having to Wikipedia something, I can look at the teacher prep section and it's gonna get rid of that need for my Wikipedia moment. And then it's gonna have each individual session, which I always say is like, in an ideal world, if I had all the time in the world to teach this topic, then I could do every single one of these sessions. But in our position currently, we're going to have to kind of pick and choose which sessions we want to use. But each of these sessions will give you an actual way to implement this section of the textbook in your classroom. So if I want to use this section 3.1, concept 3.1, then I can use each of these individual sessions to implement in my classroom. So it actually has a lesson plan written for you. Is it a perfect lesson plan? No. Do you want to use every single one of them? Probably not, but it gives you somewhere to start if you're struggling for how to use the textbook in your classroom. It also has extensions. So we've got an extension activity and then the hands-on suggested activity with instructional notes. And it also has all the assignments and resources. So one thing that I tell people is if they get stressed out trying to look through Discover, look through the practice tab, look through the apply tab, you can just click on model lesson and click on assignments and resources. And it's going to show you all of the assignments and resources that are linked under each of those tabs. So if you're stressed and you just want something quick that supports the unit that you're in, you can click on model lesson and find something quickly that way instead of having to look through every single tab and figure that out. Of course, it doesn't have pictures, right? And you can't see like a little icon of whatever the PDF is or whatever the video is, but it's an easy way to start looking through and seeing how you could really use the textbook in practice in your classroom. Everybody okay? They're like, we already knew all of this. We're pros. We're pros. We already knew all of that. Okay, so when you find things that you like, one thing that I always like to mention. So if I'm looking at this and I like my signed numbers superhero interactive game, okay? So when I find something that I like, I can add it to my quick list, which I joke because it is the season of online shopping. It's always actually the season of online shopping for me, but I can add it to my quick list, which I call my shopping cart, which lives in the top right corner of my screen. So here in my quick list, I found this activity that I liked, and no matter what computer I log in on, it's going to be saved in the top right corner of my screen. So if I did this on my laptop and then I pull it up on my desktop that's connected to my smartboard, it's going to show up in the quick list up here. I can also add it to my content. This is like a more permanent way to keep up with things. So I'd click add folder. Obviously, I would probably want to title it my unit, but I can save it here as well. So that way, every time that you teach this, this unit in math, you have a record of the Discovery Education activities that you used. So if you're not using every single tab of the textbook, this is really helpful to be able to have them all saved into one place. So any activities in here that are linked, I can do that. I can actually do that with a whole page. So if I always want to use this engage page, I've got 3 dots here. I can add it to my quick list or add it to my content. So if I do add to quick list, I personally like to add things to the quick list and then save them all as one content list. So I can add all the lists to my content. So I'm adding all 4 items to 7th grade math up here. And now every time that I teach this unit, I can have all of these under that unit title. And then you just click remove all when you're done, and it'll empty out your shopping cart for you, and you can go back again.
I do have a question real quick. I know Tom had gotten for Southern Middle an 8th grade folder, and at one point I was trying to get a 7th grade folder for Southern Middle, and I know she was out on maternity leave. Like, can anyone else besides, I can't think of her name right now, do that?
I
Share
should
with
be
her.
able to. Will you send me an email to remind me though, Tracy?
Yes, I will.
We're done, and I'll work on it for y'all. Just
Okay.
say like 7th grade math folder. You want it
So
under the school content, right?
right, so that way you can share it within the school, because Tom has his on there, so I can get Tom's stuff, but my 7th grade teacher can't get my stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
And one thing while we're talking about that, I'm glad that you said that, Tracy, is that to keep in mind when you transfer it over to school content. So if I make a folder in my content, the one way that it's not like Google is the best comparison I can give. When I transfer over this folder, so I would do move copy, and then I can click on my school content, and then I would select where to save it in school content, which I'm not going to save this to math because it actually had some science stuff in it.
Okay.
But you would click on Math 7th. And of course, right now I'm connected to West Pine Middle, but I can change and connect to Southern as well. So I would select the folder that I want to save it to. The only thing is it's going to copy it as is. So on December 2nd, when I transferred over, when I copied, over this folder, that's how it's going to stay. So I always tell people to make sure that like you have added everything that you might want to add or made every assessment that you might want to make before you transfer it over.
So you can't add anything to that folder or that?
You can add to it later, but adding to the folder in my content does not automatically add to the school content folder.
Gotcha. You have to go back and add it again, add it to yours, and then add it to the school.
Yep, exactly. So if you like were to create a 10-question assessment that your 7th grade math PLC wanted to use, then you would just want to make sure that you, like when you create it in your folder, just go on and copy it over to the school content as well.
Okay. Tom, question for you. Have you updated that? Since he's on here.
Well, as far as like the 8th grade content folder, most of what I have in there is from last year. I've created some new stuff this year, and those things I put in there to share with Amy.
Okay, so they're in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I just do the whole, like she was just on make the copy and move it over that way.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Perfect. All right, so that was kind of our quick list in my content. And like I said, as you're kind of exploring the tech book and you want to find some new things, I always like adding to the quick list. It's like my shopping cart. You know, does anybody else do that? Like you just keep adding to the shopping cart and then you go back and kind of decide what you want to buy? No, just me.
I keep a lot of the videos in there that I use. That way I can just get them real quickly when I need them in class.
And I think the limit is, one time I was in an airport when I worked for Discovery and I actually figured it out, and it's like 87 items. So you can have like up to 87 things in your quick list.
Yeah, I've got like 54, but then they don't all, like when I sign in initially, they don't all just show up. I have to wait for them all to show up.
So the best way is to eventually start adding them to my content, but it is nice to just have them right there up at the top of the screen whenever you start going through. So one thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, because it sounds like the people that I invited, I already saw were using Discovery Education quite a bit. And B, it sounds like you're already using it to find resources. The thing that I wanted to talk about was assigning through Discovery Education. So kind of when do I need to assign? Because obviously we have Canvas as a LMS that is up and coming now. And we also have teachers that are still using Google Classroom at the middle school level. So I wanted to talk about when do you need to assign, how do you assign, etc. So I'm going to go back over to our tech book here. Now, the rule of thumb is if you want for Discovery Education to grade it for you, you need to assign it through Discovery Education. So if I am going to have students complete this Engage page, and I want for Discovery Education to keep up with this question here. If it's embedded in the textbook, it stays in the textbook. So this question is embedded in the textbook, and I, as a student, would go to the same Engage page on my version of the textbook. I would read about boiling water at high altitudes, and then I would answer this question about change in elevation. If I want them to answer that question, their results will show up under results in my teacher dashboard. So I click on results, I click on concept dashboard, and all of their answers are going to be here. Here we go. I have my student names hidden. So you can hide the student names if you pull it up on the board. So I've got, this is that change in elevation question. It says 0 here, and every box would actually be blue because they're writing a short answer question and you have to score that short answer question. So every box would be blue here. You would click on the blue box. It will show you your student's answer and you will provide feedback. Now, the cool thing is, with a question like this, it actually will give you a little rubric. It's normally like a 3-2-1 style rubric. So the 3 things that they had to include to get 3, 2 things for 2, and then 1. And you actually can just click on the boxes for what they included in their answer. So it does make it at least a little bit easier to do that short answer grading when it's a rubric question like that. But any question that's right or wrong is going to be green or red. So if it was no points, they didn't get any of it right. If it's a 3-part question, and let's say that they got 2 out of 3 correct, then it's going to be yellow for some points, and then it's going to be green. What's really cool about those formative assessment questions like that is you can just look down this whole screen, and if everyone is green, then you know that you're good to go on that concept and you're not worried about reviewing it. If you look down this whole section and it's red, then obviously I probably need to look back at, let's say, multiplication expressions and figure out what that question was and why students got it wrong. So once again, if the question is embedded in the textbook like this, it's going to live in the textbook, the answer. So even if you share this activity to Google Classroom or you share this activity to Canvas and you want your students to complete it via one of those 2 LMSs, you're still going to have to come back to Discovery Education, click on results, and click on concept dashboard to see their answers. Are you with me so far? Okay, I don't hear any no's. All right, so when you want to apply it through Discovery, A is when you're doing it like that, assign it, excuse me. Also, when I am doing these practice problems, or if I make an assessment, then I'm going to want to assign it through Discovery. So these practice questions here, I could see my results for this game. So if I had my students play the game, then I can do that. And I can see my results for the practice exercises here. So once again, we need to assign these through Discovery because that's the only way that we're going to see our results. I just saw Will's thing about shopping. Okay, now to assign through Discovery system. So really the only time that you need to assign through Discovery is if you want to see the results in Discovery. So once again, if you want Discovery to keep track of the answers, then assign it through Discovery. If I'm just going to use this video here on multiplying integers, then I don't need to share this through Discovery system, right? I'm just going to click share. And then I've got my Google Classroom logo here. It's going to actually pull up my Google Classroom, and I can share this to a specific class, create an assignment, and go. And it will include my link there. And if I'm using Canvas, I'm going to copy this link here, and then I'm going to add it as a URL in Canvas. We were playing with the external tool in Canvas with embedding earlier. I was having some trouble with it. I know you guys at Southern are using a lot more Canvas. Well, not a lot more. You're only using Canvas this year. So you might have even better ways to use it with Canvas than I have. I'm not sure what's working for y'all. But I was having trouble with that earlier. So if I want to share this whole page, so every resource has 3 dots in the corner. course, I pick a page that doesn't have a resource on it. And here's my investigations here. Let me click on one of these. So every resource will have 3 dots in the corner. There's also my 3 dots in the corner here. And then for this investigation, since I would assume if I were you, would want for the results to show up under results in my dashboard, I'm gonna click assign here. And I have to put in my assignment date, which I'll do today. My due date will do Friday. And then I would select my class and then assign. And now I can go back and view my assignment manager. So if I ever need to change a date, I can go to my assignment manager. I can unassign it, which I'm gonna do so that these poor 10 6th graders don't think that they need to complete some random assignment in the 7th grade math textbook. And then also under my classrooms, I'm going to talk to you guys in a minute about creating a class. So if you've never assigned in Discovery Education before, it probably asked you to create a class, which we will talk about in just a second. Any questions about when to assign through Discovery Education? Okay. Couple other things that I forgot to mention, because this is my 2nd time doing this today. In the textbook, when you highlight, it pulls up these options. So you can speak the text aloud, you can highlight in 4 different colors, and you can also take notes. So if you had students reading the textbook on their own and you wanted them to take some notes in the textbook, all of the notes live right here. And you can also go down to more and click on my notebook. So students have this option as well, not just us. And it'll show you exactly what you highlighted and the note that you took. And you can go back to the concept. You can also just view your notebook for the whole course. So I can see all the notes that I took by unit. And obviously right now, the only unit that I have a note in is my unit 3 here. So this is really cool when it gets towards the end of the year and they can review all of the notes that they took throughout the school year. And this could be like if you're going over something on the board and you just want them to take a note somewhere in the textbook, then they can take a note on that topic and write down what you went over on the board. I've also had teachers that have students highlight and take notes to prove that they read something. So you could have them take like 1 note per paragraph just to make sure that they were reading and actually comprehending what they were reading. And then also my language here, it translates into Spanish. So the whole textbook is available in Spanish. It also reads aloud in Spanish. So when I highlighted and my speak text bubble popped up, it will also speak the text aloud to me in Spanish as well. If a resource is available in Spanish, they will have inserted it in Spanish. However, not every video is available in Spanish. So normally it will have, if it's a video, it'll have the caption of the video in Spanish, even though the video itself won't be in Spanish. So a good portion of it is in Spanish. I especially like that it reads it aloud in Spanish too. Other things, any blue word. So here my words number line are blue. Any blue word is going to take me to an interactive glossary. It'll have a video explaining it, the exact definition of the word, the context of the word, a secondary video, which is actually our 3rd example, and then also an image of a number line. So any glossary term, any blue term you can click on, and you can also just view the glossary as a whole. So this is the entire math glossary. And there's 1,342 blue words in the glossary. So rather than flipping to the back of the book, you can just click on the blue words and it'll take me to my glossary in the textbook. Okay. Let me make sure I got my checklist done. Okay, we talked about assigning. Are we sure we don't have any questions about assigning to Canvas? How's that working for y'all at Southern? Because you're still using Discovery, right?
Yeah, I simply, when I put my instructions in Canvas, and I'll just say this assignment's on Discovery Education, and then I just insert the link to Discovery.
That's what
embed the link, and I've just shown them how to get it off the student homepage.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do too. They just go to Discovery.
Yep. So the other thing that you can do that might be a little bit easier if you start thinking about it this way is if you do the share out arrow that I was talking about. So if you do the more and then share, or the 3 dots on the resource that you, Tom, have saved in your quick list, since you're using your quick list a lot. When you copy this link, it should take them directly to the page in Discovery.
Mhm.
So rather than, and I say that especially if you're like, maybe next year for our schools that are transitioning to Canvas to make our lives a little bit easier. And then also for maybe kids that are new to Canvas and to Discovery Education, if you do that shareable link, it'll take them directly to this page that's engaged for concept 3.1. So it'll make it just a little bit easier for them to get through than having to go through the homepage. Although I'm really impressed that your students like do that and don't complain. So
actually, on that, how long did it take, or how deliberative were you guys in teaching your kids to take those steps so that it came through the way you wanted it?
Well, I guess, I did an assignment with them before I started assigning it for remote learning, and I just walked them through it. I mean, from a math perspective, I think like at least at Southern, Miss Merchant's probably the only other math teacher who uses it as much as I do. But I know the social studies teachers and science teachers at the other grade levels have used Discovery Ed. So they are basically familiar with its operation. So I'm not having to reteach them, click here, click here, click here. If I say go to Discovery Ed, they know what to do and they know how to get to the student page and click on their assignment and do the assignment.
And that's another benefit, because I thought of this as I heard you talking about it, Tom. Another benefit of assigning through the Discovery Ed system before you tell them to, like in your Canvas course, to go to Discovery Ed, is when you assign it through the Discovery Ed system, it shows up on their homepage.
It's very user-friendly. And I'll tell you the reason I like it is when we first came online with this, I think 3 years ago, and I started using it for assessments as opposed to SchoolNet, I found the students were much more engaged with the assessment and they like to anticipate getting all the green at the end and they'll hold it up and show me in class. But I found the questions were a better quality question and a little bit higher level and a little bit more engaging than what we had in SchoolNet. And so I've used it exclusively for assessments. The coach and plays, I assign. I know one year when we had Flex organized differently at Southern, is I used Discovery to go back and remediate a lot of areas. So I had my students doing the 6th grade coach and plays during Flex time, because they were just weak in those areas. And I found that very beneficial. And that's kind of what boosted my usage rate. And even Discovery Ed sent me an email, "You're one of our top users in the nation." And well, it's because I was using it every day with 13 kids.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I said ours are familiar with it because they've used it. I know one of our science teachers in 6th grade uses it quite a bit, Miss Yeager. Though not as much since she's been 100% virtual this year. But I didn't have to teach them too much about how to use it. It is fairly user-friendly.
Good.
And I want to make a comment about the coach and play. I mean, and this is when I emailed you back about not using the coach and play much. I will use it in class for some things if I can watch them, but the kids have learned that they choose A, it's not right. They choose B, it's not right. They choose C, it's not right. They choose D, unless it's an actual put the answer in. I mean, and even my personal child at home says, "Mom, you don't got to do the problem. Just guess and we'll get it. We'll get the right one." And so they're not doing the math. It's a guessing game to them. So that's why I limit using that unless I make them show their work or they're at school and I can kind of monitor it. But I do like Tom got me hooked on the making your own assignment or assessment, because it doesn't show you the grade till the end.
Right.
And then it shows you, and then you can go back and look at your answers and they can make corrections off of that. But I see when it's immediate feedback and they can change their answers and they can just guess, they're not doing the math. They're just guessing and moving on.
So let's talk about building a class and making your own assessment so that other people, if they watch the recording, know how to do that, since that's something that we really like using.
Yeah. And I'll just add on that,
Yeah.
I teach Math 1. And so I was given access to textbooks, Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3.
Okay.
And that's very beneficial because when we talk about combining everything we see with the student from STAR testing and everything else, I'll have STAR data tell me that I have students working beyond the 11th grade level. And then I can go into the textbook when I make my assessment and find similar concepts in Math 2 and Math 3, build that into my assessment, and that way I push the students with that higher level and that critical thinking that everyone seems to think we don't do or give our students, but Discovery Ed really does do that.
Awesome.
Real quick, Ms. Merchant, to because I get to look across a little bit, one way that Northmore high school teachers, Mr. Fury, for example, gets kids to get around what you're describing, where they just go through and just click buttons.
Right.
Every time he puts an assignment, he uses CK12 a lot because we don't have the tech books at the high school level. He uses CK12 a lot, but then every time he does that, the very next thing below that in Canvas will be a file submission. And it's the kids have to take a picture of their scrap paper.
Right. Yeah, my son has to do that he's in Math 3 at Pinecrest, and he has to turn that in every time.
Okay.
And what I do, like what I do for my assessment, since we're doing remote learning, and I'm not going to take a class day to do a test, I don't feel it's the best use of time, but I'll assign it at home. And if they don't upload a copy of their work, they don't get any credit for it. And a few of my Math 1 students had to take their zeros and realize I was serious. But that's to avert the cheating, the sharing of answers. You know, if you can't provide me work, then I don't know how you got these answers.
And so what you have them do for that, Tom, is that they upload the picture maybe of their scrap paper on Canvas.
Right, just like what Will described, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So that's a
And
really
it's just it's amazing how my son has a lot of friends over. He's in 10th grade and my daughter's in 8th grade. And last year when we started this, there was a homework chain through social media of everybody sharing their answers, and I would get her phone at night and see it. It's just amazing to me how the kids are working so hard to get out of doing the work when they could just do the work. It just amazes me.
no more writing it on your sleeve under your jacket.
Well, especially in math, because they have that math app that all you got to do is scan the question and it pops up the answer, or Math Papa, and they just plug it in. And, so there's so many, it's okay to check your answer and figure out how to do it, but not just take the answer.
Oh, for sure.
That's hard.
So let me go over the classroom really quick. So always click on the globe if you need to go back to your homepage. In here, you've got classrooms, and then I'm assuming that what you're using, Tom and Tracy, is the assessment builder to make your assessments.
Yes.
Okay. So what they're talking about is assessment builder here. And I have created some, look at me go. So I'm going to click create assessment, and then you can do a practice assessment, a concept-based, or a standards-based. So this one will align to North Carolina standards. I'm going to do concept-based just because we're using the tech book. And let's say test assessment. You can display the items in random order. And then I'll save it to my little 7th grade math folder here. And then you select your math textbook as your product. And then you select your course. So we'll do grade 7. And I'm guessing that when Tom was saying he can use this for enrichment, he can select Math 2 as his course instead of Math 1 to do enrichment for his Math 1 students. Okay, and then we were looking at this one, multiply and divide signed numbers. So I'm gonna search for items with that concept. And I've got actually 53 choices here. So, oh, it's not loading very well. It should load. My Wi-Fi must just be wonky today. Let's see. Math.
Well, while we're oh, it loaded.
No, you're
I was
fine.
just going to add while we're waiting, and I'm glad Mr. Herring's on to hear me say this. When I started using this 3 years ago, well, here's what because I don't know what the future of Discovery Ed is. I know our diff sent out an email yesterday. If we don't use it, we lose it. But before I became an avid user and I did some research on Discovery Ed, it was proven to be very, very effective with populations such as what we have at Southern Middle. And so when I embraced it, the first year, my students showed exceptional growth on their EOGs. And then when I used it the following year, we showed what I call monster growth. And that was a year that Southern, we met growth in all areas and across all demographics. And that's what my data showed as well. And so I'm very much vested in using this program, but the point is that it does show growth. And I've seen more growth using Discovery Ed than I ever saw with SchoolNet or some of the other things that are out there. Because of how it's set up, it promotes, at least for math, the math fluency, the conceptual understanding, critical thinking, the stuff that we need them to learn to be successful on an EOG.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll just comment right there. Like, that is excellent. And I'm glad you have the data. And I'm not part of those decisions, but I would say sing it from the rooftop and get as many folks on as you can. Just my experience in Moore County, and some of y'all have been here much longer than me, I've never seen them kill a program that teachers were using.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen them move away from something that, like you said, not only is it being used, but it's actually proven results.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sing it from the rooftops and get some more folks on board. And I think you'll be, my experience says you'll be totally fine.
I mean, obviously I don't have the data from last year because of COVID, but we were really on track just from looking at STAR data to probably show a good amount of growth again. So like I said, I have the data. The data's for our schools public. You know, I don't care if people look at my EVOS data because I think it's cause to rejoice that we did so well and what I can attribute the growth to.
All right, first of all, I'm so excited to hear about your results, Tom. That's amazing. Those are the kinds of like wonderful stories that I wanted to always share when I worked for Discovery Education. I have not personally heard the use it or lose it thing. I know that that's kind of going around the block. We're just trying to make sure that everyone is kind of trained up on how to use Discovery Education to make sure that we know what's actually part of the system. I don't know why my thing is not loading for this, but you can see, maybe it's because I'm sharing my screen, although that doesn't make sense to me. There's 120 items for this one section of the concept, 53 items for the multiply and divide signed numbers, and then 81 items that I can choose from for explore the rational number system. So what's really easy, if my screen was loading correctly, would be here under the 120 results. Next to each question, there's just an add button, and you can click add as you scroll through each of these pages. And then at the end, you can view your saved items, and then you can assign your assessment from here. So I could assign, and then I can preview. And when I preview, I can actually print it. But one of the things that Tom was alluding to is that the kids don't get bored with the questions. And that's because a lot of these questions are technology enhanced, meaning they're like matching questions or they're drop-down menu questions, just like the types of questions that we can do now on a Google form. And so when you have to print the questions, you kind of lose a lot of those capabilities. So even though you would not choose the text enhanced, the technology enhanced items, If you're printing off your test, I would definitely recommend trying to do it on a Chromebook and using those items, because that's what's going to kind of keep the kids interested in the test. And then here I've got my created date. This was the title of my assessment. And then under actions, I can go on and assign it from my assessment builder to students. I can also copy it. So this would be where I could make a copy. And if, Tom's making the assessment for this unit and Tracy's making it for the next unit, then I would be able to click on my school content and copy over that assessment to my Math 7th folder. So that way I can not have to reinvent the wheel, and we can kind of divide and conquer as far as our assessments go. So that's our assessment builder. All of the assessments that you assign will then show up under the assignment manager. So if I go in here to my assignment manager by class, I've got all of my assignments listed here. This would be everything that I have assigned to students. And then I also said that I wanted to go over the classroom builder really quick. So here, if I click on all classrooms, so to get to classrooms, you can click on the globe and then you'll see classrooms as an icon across the top right about here. And then I would do create classroom. So you can name it whatever you want. We'll do block 3. You don't have to put in a description, but you might want to put in like, fall 2020 or something like that. And then it's connected to my school's roster. And so here next to each student's name, I could just click add. So over here, I just click add. I'm adding them all in. And then you would just click through your pages. There used to be a way to connect it to PowerSchool. The only downside of that is you wouldn't, if it is connected to PowerSchool, you wouldn't be able to create like enrichment or remediation classes. So the cool part about this is if you kind of work with the same 6 AIG students for enrichment during flex period, then you can assign just those 6 students something and make them their own class. Now you can also just assign the same 10 kids an activity every time by selecting the students that you want to assign something to. So you don't have to make additional classes, but that is an option when it's not connected to the PowerSchool roster. So once I go back to my classroom, here's my block 3 class right here. And then if I get rid of this class, if I don't need it anymore, I would just click archive. Archive is not easy to reinstate. Like we have to contact Discovery Education to reinstate an archive class. So be careful with that. It's not like sending an email to the trash and you can throw it back in your inbox. It's really hard to reinstate an archive class. So just make sure that when you're archiving, you are totally ready to archive that class.
I have a question. Yeah. Will you go back to where you were pulling the kids to your classroom?
Yes. I'm actually just going to edit this one here.
That works.
So if you need to add a kid in later, like let's say that so it connects to PowerSchool, so you can see like the @ncmcs.net, it's their email address. So if you need to add a kid in later, you just click on the pencil there and you'll be able to add in more kids.
Okay, so my question is, in years past, last year and this year, I don't think it worked, but before that, if you go to school roster, I was able to type in the kid's first and last name and hit search and it would pull up.
I don't know why that's not working. I noticed that in the 9 o'clock session this morning.
Yeah, it didn't work last year and it's not worked this year. So I have to, which is a pain, honestly a pain, because you have to go in and find each child by the alphabet. And you can limit and actually they just changed the look of this because it did have your grade on here and you could change the grade and get just the grade.
I know.
So they've just updated that, which is not as friendly either. But that's one thing is you have to go search for every child instead of typing in there.
Will Herring, is that something that we can ask when we talk to Discovery again? Is he still here?
I don't know if he's still here.
He's on mute.
Oh, he's okay.
Yeah, what I normally do to find students is I'll type the first name in, because when I went to the training, that was how she told us. There was some reason why we had to do it by first name and not by last name, but then it'll bring up like all the kids from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I'd have to pick the 8th grade student and, hope for the best.
There we go. So you can
just
do it by first name.
All the, all the Andrews.
All the
Okay.
Andrews.
Yeah.
So at least we
Okay.
can do it by first name, but it used to be
Yeah.
my last name. You're right, Tracy, because I tried that during our 9 a.m. session and I was like, cool, not working.
Not working, yeah. So yeah, that's good that you can, I haven't tried just by first name. I was putting first and last name in there.
So do it by first name. I'm
Okay.
glad you said that, Tom. And obviously the username is like way too long to try and do it by that. And we don't know their
Right.
email addresses. So first name is going to be your best bet. At
Okay.
least then it'll just bring up the kids.
You get a smaller list to choose from.
Yeah.
And at
Much
least then it's
easier.
only 1 or 2 pages.
Is there
Um,
anywhere? Is there anywhere on that screen to upload a CSV? Because it looks like it's actually their usernames aren't quite the same as their email address. They're making a dummy email address. It's our email address and then at
Google.
google.discovereducation.com. So do you see anywhere where I could upload a roster?
No, because it's just connected to the school roster.
Okay. All right. But to address another thing, yes, it never hurts to ask the question. I learned that from my mother. So we will absolutely ask for
Yeah.
a better system.
Because that's definitely something that I did notice this morning, Tracy, and I was like, wow, that's really inconvenient.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I did it, but it just takes a little bit longer to pull everybody in.
Yeah. So
Let me ask
maybe
you this: is that actually talking to Power School, or is it talking to Google Manager?
I thought it was talking to Power School, but it might be talking to Google Manager
Those student IDs are too long to be ours.
because it says
Yeah.
student uses SSO too.
Yeah, I've noticed, like, if I couldn't find a student, if I typed in that Power School student ID, it never brought them up.
Yeah.
But there was a reason why you had to do it by first name. I remember that from the training, and I don't remember, she said the reason, but I don't remember the reason.
You know what? I bet if it's pulling from Google, one of our security features is that we don't put students' full last name into Google.
Yeah.
So mine would be like Will H. So it may well see the full first name,
Mm-hmm.
but not
Mhm.
last. Type just the letter H or something into the last name and see if with just that, it'll search anything. There we go. There's your reason.
Yeah.
So this is only talking to Google, and that actually matches up with some other things that we were talking about before. Is Google the best way to do it for what we're trying to do? I don't have a definitive answer for that yet.
So it looks like, Tracy, the easiest way would be by first name probably because it pulled up less results with that.
Yeah, that's still a lot less to
Yeah.
work with.
But
That's
if you couldn't find them by first name, you could always use the last initial.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank you for figuring that out.
yeah,
Thanks, Tom.
I'm glad we figured it out together. And I'm glad Tom was in here because earlier in the session, I tried typing in Johnson for the last name and I was like, nothing found. And I know there's
Nothing
Johnson
found.
at West Pine Middle. Cool. So I am glad that we looked at that too. But make sure that when you're editing your classroom, it's going to start on the classroom members. And this is also where you can delete a kid, right? So if you had a kid transfer out, then you can remove them from the class. Just it'll remove them. And you can re-add them really quickly. If you're like, oh, I didn't mean to remove them, then you can add them back really quick. And then next to each student's name, so when I go into my classrooms and I click on my Block 2 class, there's a little person and I can log in as the student. So one thing that I always did at the beginning of the year was log in as the student so I could see what a student would see. So this is what Dominic would see when he logs in. And then earlier when we were talking about assigning through the Discovery Education system, the cool thing is that when you make an assignment and you send it to them, it shows up right here under upcoming assignments. So even with us using Canvas and it not bringing up like a nice window in Canvas like Nearpod does or something like that, you can still have them go to their homepage and link Discovery Education's homepage through Canvas. And if you have assigned it through the Discovery Ed system, it's going to show up on their homepage here. This way you can see exactly what a student would see. If they have questions about like where their grades are or anything, you can see what they're seeing. Because I know the question that I've gotten a lot of during remote learning is, well, that's not showing up on my screen. right?
Well, let me say this, like one situation I did have this year was it wasn't showing up on the child screen.
Yeah.
And so I went all around the county, technology, nobody can help me. So they told me to call Discovery Ed. So when I talked to the person in Discovery Ed, apparently, I don't know how, but he had 2 accounts.
Yep.
So they had to delete one of the accounts and move, I don't know what all they did, but they deleted one of the accounts. They reconnected the other account because when I went in through his view, it showed.
Yeah.
But when he went in through his view and he would show it to me and it wasn't, there were no assignments there. So we did get it fixed, but we had to call them for that one, for them to delete one of the accounts. Now, I have no idea how we got 2 accounts.
And the easy way to do that too is they have like a chat feature as well, where you can chat with them really quickly and you can also call them. Like I normally will do like the little chat feature if I'm having an issue. When I'm logged in as a student, just make sure that you click in the top right corner. It'll say like my initials are not DA, so I already know that this isn't me. And then you click quit impersonation in orange there, just before you make any changes. Make sure you do that. So at the bottom, there's contact us, and this is on every screen. And there's the phone number that you would call if you had an issue like that, like Tracy did. And another thing is that you can submit a form here. So if you have a question and you need to submit a form really quickly, then you could submit a form there. I don't think they have the live chat anymore either. This is just letting me down today, you guys. Ruining my hopes and dreams. Ruining my hopes and dreams.
Well, it looks like chat with an expert came up in your lower.
Oh, yes, there it is.
Yeah.
I used to have chat live over here on the right. So you can do chat with an expert. This is only available. Oh, I'm showing you guys like all my addresses and stuff. This is only available like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or something like that. Like they have specific hours. So sometimes they might not be open yet when you're at school. So just keep that in mind when you're going to there. I like the live chat a lot because they'll get something done really quickly. Now to explain a situation like Tracy had, you might have to actually call in because that sounds a little more complicated than just chatting with an expert.
And it took us a while to get there. Like at first we couldn't figure it out, and then she did research after research, and then finally. So yeah, that was worth a phone call.
Mm-hmm. And another thing with the chat with an expert, they can also help you, like if you maybe a kid transferred from West Pine to Southern or vice versa, or over to Cranes Creek or something like that, then the chat with an expert, they can help you transfer that kid within the system too. So that's kind of an easy way to get that fixed really quick as well. So if you have any kids that transfer within our Moore County school system, that's an easy way to get that done. So let me see. We went off on a lot of tangents, but I'm so glad you guys asked questions. Let me make sure I talked about all my teacher dashboard stuff. I think that I did. Yes. Okay. So my key to remember, if you want Discovery Ed to grade it for you, you have to assign it through Discovery Ed and then share it to Google Classroom or Canvas, because we all are worried about that. I do have a sign-in form for y'all. I'm going to stop my sharing. It's on that sheet. I will also throw our link in the chat window here. Dun, 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 dun.
I was wondering, since you're the diff up at West Pine, do they use Discovery Education a lot?
So we actually our science teachers use it. Probably because I actually like facilitate the science PLCs at West Pine. So I work with the science department a lot more. I still work with everybody, you know, if they seek me out and that kind of thing. But a lot of our science teachers are using Discovery Ed more so than math or social studies. So
just curious.
Yeah.
Also,
But our science, like especially our 6th grade science really loves it, and they would be very brokenhearted if it were to go away. So that's why we kind of did these sessions, was in the hope that more people would learn how to use it and start using it a little bit more. So hopefully we can kind of increase the interest in Discovery Ed. And Will Herring and I have been working on talking to Discovery Ed and figuring out, you know, what our best connectivity options are with Power Schools and Canvas and Discovery Ed, all working together and trying to figure out how we can make it more streamlined for our district. So that's been like one of our little personal tasks.
Yeah. And I'll just add in, it's pockets at different places. So when we're looking at the data, we've got a lot of